Today, I'm going to walk through how we're implementing and communicating our QRV program evaluation. Since we've already completed initial planning and now we're beginning to collect data, I'll explain what we've done to prepare and then focus on how we'll execute and communicate. The purpose of this evaluation is to assess how consistently our QRV system is being executed, and we're intentionally focusing on process rather than just outcomes. In our environment, outcomes like taste and accuracy and food safety doesn't improve unless the underlying systems of the process improves. If we only look at outcomes, we miss the root cause. So this evaluation helps us to understand whether the QRV system that we're using or designing our practices around, breading procedures, inspections, and huddles, they're being carried out the way we expect across all shifts. Our evaluation is centered around two questions. First, to what extent are QRV processes like inspections and breeding procedures implemented consistently across shifts? Second, to what extent are kitchen staff actually following the cooking procedures as designed, including coding management and production control? These questions allow us to look at both the system level and the behavior level. We're not asking, do we have a process, but are we doing it? This evaluation follows 5 phases. The initial planning phase, we identified the need, selected a process-focused approach, and then we engaged stakeholders like directors and shift leaders to shape the evaluation. Now we're entering the data collection phase, where we gather observations, surveys, and system data. After that, we move into the analysis and interpretation phase, looking for patterns across the shift. Then we communicate results through dashboards and meetings. And most importantly, we use those results to improve the process in real time. So it's not a one-time evaluation, it's part of a continuous improvement cycle. This phase, data will be collected daily over a 30-day period across all shifts using multiple methods. Unannounced observations, surveys from leaders and staff, system data from Kitchen IQ and inspection logs. This mixed method approach is important because it allows us to triangulate what's really happening. Observations show behavior, surveys show perception, data shows performance. So together they give us a complete picture instead of just relying on one source. There are 3 critical considerations that we have to navigate, though: culture, politics, and ethics. From a cultural standpoint, our workforce is diverse, especially with a strong Hispanic and Spanish-speaking population. Motivation, communication, expectations not the same across everyone. So being intentional about culturally responsive evaluations, how we communicate and how we get the feedback, and then how we interpret the behavior. What motivates someone who is a native-born, English-speaking employee might not motivate someone who is first-generation immigrant or who is an immigrant themselves. And so understanding how to motivate, while we use flowery language like place that feels like home, or to someone who's an immigrant, it might be take on a different meaning. So how do you motivate someone whose culture is different? So we have to take that into consideration, making sure that we use data that's unbiased rather than relying simply on personal motivation. From a political standpoint, this evaluation exists in the real environment, where, of course, people have competing priorities. For example, you have some leaders who prioritize speed over the process, so they allow shortcuts. A lot of shift leaders do this, especially in the evening. And then others may resist standardization. They like just doing it however they feel like, however gets the job done. They like doing it their way. And this can create tension, especially when you have certain directors who are not willing to push against that tension or who don't want to face that conflict. And then you have team leaders and shift leaders who are allowing these shortcuts, and so we have inconsistency. So we address this by focusing on the systems, not the individuals, by using data that everyone can see. And then ethically, this evaluation is low risk because, I mean, we still have responsibility, but it's low risk. We're not using data to punish people. We're not using data that's going to be unfair or improper. And we ensure fairness and consistency and integrity across how it's collected. So the goal is improvement, not discipline. If we notice a particular shift or particular people who are not implementing the process the right way, it's not about discipline and punishing or firing them. It's about educating them on the right way of doing things. All right, so the evaluation does not require IRB approval. We're not using human subjects. It's an internal operation evaluation, so it doesn't involve sensitive personal data. But we're still taking out steps to protect people, so observations are role-based. Directors, meaning shift leaders, meaning those whose responsibility is to oversee these areas, are the ones who are observing, and not just random people just because they feel like it. Survey responses can be anonymous, and results will be reported in aggregate rather than tied to specific individuals. So it won't be naming names, even though we know specifically what shift and what person is doing this, or what people could be doing this, or what leaders could be allowing it. We're not naming names. We're simply showing the data, and we'll let that speak for itself. If the interpretation then results in a shift leader or a certain person consistently doing this, the data will show that, and not one person. Action plan happens in 3 phases. First is the alignment shade, making sure that leaders understand the purpose and expectations. So why are we doing this? What do we need to get out of it? What do we expect? What does right look like? Second is the implementation stage, meaning daily reinforcement through checklists, leadership presence, and huddles. And then third is feedback, sharing results weekly and adjusting as needed. In terms of tasks, ownership is clearly defined. Directors, of course, are responsible for the observations and the leadership alignment, but the shift leaders ensure that the process is executed. So we'll oversee the data collecting, the analysis, and reporting within the structure ensures accountability, and it keeps the evaluation integrated into daily operations rather than being something extra that we have to do. Evaluation requires minimal additional resources because it builds on systems and structures we already have. The main investment is time and consistency. It's the most important thing. Time and consistency. If we spend the time and we're consistent across every shift, across all leaders implementing the same thing, we'll have consistent, steady, predictable results. If we don't spend the time and we're not consistent, if only certain leaders are implementing the process, if only certain leaders are making sure the process is being done, if only certain leaders are pressuring or influencing shift leaders and others are not, then we're having inconsistent execution across the board. Bowman and Deal's 4 frames help us to understand implementation. Structurally, we are improving the system and the process. Politically, we're navigating all these different competing priorities and influence. From a human resource perspective, we're supporting and developing our people, making sure that they grow and take pride in their work, but also that they learn how to implement these processes properly. And then symbolically, we are reinforcing what matters in our culture. A place that feels like home, but food safety and craveable food. So to close this evaluation, it's about building systems that work consistent. If we get the process right, the outcomes will follow. That moves us away from reacting to problems to actually preventing them because of better execution.